The Fallout universe is full of places where things aren't quite what they seem, and school isn't exactly the first place you'd expect to find a criminal conspiracy. But before the bombs fell, something very strange was happening inside Shore High School. Now, the school has seen better days. It's no longer filled with children, instead serving as a super mutant camp. But before the Great War, its students were getting terrible test scores. And that was a problem for Principal Ronald Tanner. Tanner had previously worked as a Voltac salesman before becoming the principal of Shore High School, and with the school superintendent concerned about those test scores, he needed to find a way to improve them quickly. So he came up with a rather questionable solution: mentats. Tanner secretly recruited 5 delinquent students to distribute the chems around the school, offering them longer lunch periods and the removal of certain disciplinary records in exchange for their help. His plan was to get the students taking mentats, improve their intelligence and test scores, and use those improved results to secure a substantial increase in school funding Tanner intended to pocket for himself. One of the students he recruited was a boy called Rusty Burton, and you can find his personal journal on a terminal inside the school. And it's immediately clear that Rusty wasn't exactly a model student. Rusty is barely able to spell, he's bullying another student, and he's more interested in stealing his lunch money than learning anything inside the classroom. Then, Tanner gives him the mentats. Rusty starts giving them to the other students, but he also starts taking them too. And that's where his story gets really interesting, because you can actually see Rusty becoming more intelligent through his journal entries. At first, he notices that the mentats are making his classes easier to understand. Then he realizes that he's getting better grades without having to copy from his friend Clayton. But Rusty also starts asking questions. Why would the principal be secretly giving chems to students? He suspects that Principal Tanner is using the improved test scores to impress Superintendent Marcello and the school board, securing a substantial increase in funding, which is true, but he also realizes there must be more to it. So he decides to investigate, wanting to satisfy his ever-growing curiosity and intelligence. Rusty notices that Tanner leaves his office unlocked when he uses the restroom, so he sneaks inside and makes a copy of the principal's key using clay he borrowed from the art department. He then uses his new key to get back into the principal's office, where he accesses his terminal, finds his stash of mentats, and reads the evidence, confirming that Tanner is pocketing most of the increased funding. At this point, Rusty has everything he needs, and he decides that if Tanner is going to make money from this scheme, then Rusty deserves a piece of it too. He arranges a meeting with the principal in the library study room, where he plans to blackmail him for 50% of the money, and we actually get to hear exactly how that meeting went.
All right, Burton, I'm here. Hurry up. Out with it. I have a lot of plans for this summer, and none of them involve chatting with you.
Why, Ronald, I'm hurt. Skipping the pleasantries and getting right down to business. And after all we've accomplished together this semester.
For the last time, you little snot, it's Principal Tanner.
Fine, Principal Tanner. I'll make this quick. You've been giving me mentats to distribute to the students quietly and under the nose of the faculty. I have. Because of this, test scores have skyrocketed. The school board has noticed. We received quite an increase in funding, but the faculty doesn't know. No one here knows except you. And now, me. You've been skimming off the top and pocketing most of the funds. I want 50% of what you're embezzling, or go to Superintendent Marcello with this.
What? How did you... When did you get so smart?
You've been giving me brain pills every week. What did you expect, you pathetic little man?
Well, so what if it's all true? No one's going to believe you. You're just a kid, and I'm the principal, and more importantly, an adult.
Oh, I think they'll believe me, Ronald. Especially after they hear you admit everything in your own words.
What are you talking about? Wait, is that a holotape? You son of a...
So, the man who thought he could manipulate a bunch of delinquent students into helping him steal money from the school accidentally made one of those students intelligent enough to uncover his entire scheme. And Rusty's master plan isn't justice or revenge, but to buy a telescope, which is surprisingly innocent. However, the effects of mentats are temporary, and unless Rusty somehow creates his own synthetic version or finds enough cash to fund a steady import, he will return to his old bullish ways. While Shaw High School was hiding a surprisingly complicated story, our next discovery is much stranger, and it's hiding in a rather unexpected place. University Point Pharmacy is a small, unremarkable building inside University Point, and these days it's infested with feral ghouls. There's a workshop inside that can eventually be connected to Vault 88, but none of that is why we're here. We're here because, at the back of the pharmacy, buried beneath rock and stone, is perhaps the weirdest statue in the entire game. Through the first doorway to the right of the counter, you'll find a staircase that's almost completely blocked by debris, and if you look carefully through the rubble, you can see the head of a strange stone statue wearing what appears to be a sea captain's hat. The rest of the statue is completely buried, but there's still enough visible to make out what it is. This isn't just some ordinary statue with a blank, lifeless face. Its visible eye looks freakishly alive, and the longer I look at it, the more I'm convinced it's going to move. The problem is, we have absolutely no idea what this statue is supposed to represent. Maybe it was simply another piece of pre-war decoration that was destroyed when the bombs fell. Maybe the strange appearance is just Bethesda being Bethesda. Whatever the reason, we don't know. But we do know it's been sitting here since the Great War, staring out through the rubble, just waiting to be found. Sometimes, it's not the things we can't explain that are the most unsettling. Sometimes, it's the things we can. Fallout 4 has quite a few stories about people trying to survive the aftermath of the Great War. But there's one sad story that's spread across several locations, and it all begins with a nurse called Bonnie Turnquist. Bonnie was working at the Mars Bay Medical Center when the bombs fell. The military quickly took over the hospital, and things inside descended into chaos. People were dying every day, and the nurses could do nothing more than make them comfortable and watch them die. This went on for weeks, and the situation showed no signs of getting any better. Now, Bonnie's family, her husband Wayne and their 2 kids, were missing, and she didn't know if they were alive or not. But then, another nurse told her that she had heard a radio signal of a man that sounded surprisingly like Wayne and her 2 boys. Before we get on to what happened next, there's actually a lot more to this family's story. Wayne and Bonnie had never trusted Vault-Tec, despite their children being guaranteed entry into Vault 75 as part of a government scheme. Instead, Wayne spent much of the summer building a secret bunker in the backyard of their home at West Everett Estates. When it was finished, he instructed the children that if anything was to happen, like a nuclear war, then they were to run and hide from their teachers and then wait for him to find them. Wayne was almost certain war was coming, and he used his position at MedTech to his advantage, hacking the director's terminal and sending the nuclear activity alert from head office to himself, giving him an early warning and a greater chance of keeping his family safe. When the Great War finally started, Wayne was at MedTech Research when the alert came through, and he escaped the building as the doors were automatically sealed, trapping his colleagues inside. His children, Michael and David, ran away from their teachers and hid, while Wayne traveled on foot to rescue his children from Malden Middle School. Together they made it back to their home at West Everett Estates and into the bunker just as the planes were passing overhead. But Bonnie never made it home. She was trapped at the hospital. Wayne and the boys remained in the bunker, living in fear and listening to radio reports about the fighting around Boston. Wayne had no idea what had happened to Bonnie, but he refused to give up hope that she might still be alive. Now, Wayne couldn't leave the children alone to go look for her, so instead he tried bringing her to them. He set up a ham radio in the bunker and repeatedly broadcast their family radio signal, hoping Bonnie would hear it and know they were still alive.
Bonnie, honey, if you're able to hear this message, the boys and I are safe at home in the bunker. I pray you're still okay. I want to be out there for you more than anything, but people here are relying on me. I can't let them down. Boys say hi, and they love you. I love you so much. Please, come home.
This has been a pre-recorded message. Message repeats in 3 seconds.
Eventually, after 3 months of living below ground, the family was forced to emerge and fix their faulty water supply. They managed to get it working again, although the pipes leaked badly and they quickly ran out of duct tape. In response, Wayne decided to sneak across the street to their neighbor's house, assuming that Ron Cobb, who worked in construction, would have several spare rolls. Instead of finding them, Wayne walked into a situation that could have ended very differently. Ron put a gun against the back of Wayne's head and told him to turn around. Wayne was already suffering from severe radiation poisoning thanks to the dirty water, and Ron could see how sick he was and decided to put him out of his misery. There was a gunshot, but when Wayne opened his eyes, it was Ron falling to the ground. Someone had actually saved Wayne, and to his surprise, it was his friendly neighbor, Lance Ames. Now, the Ames family had only just returned after being stranded in Connecticut, and it was a miracle they made it back in time, saw Wayne was in trouble, and reacted quickly enough to save his life. Post-war life was getting to be quite dangerous, and finding people you could trust was getting more and more difficult. Luckily, Lance had a plan. The very next day, the two families began working together to turn the neighborhood into something they could actually defend. For the next 3 months, the Turnkists and the Ames families fortified West Everett Estates, building barricades around the neighborhood and taking shifts keeping watch. For a while, things actually seemed to be getting better. The children were able to come outside again, and the family even celebrated Bonnie's birthday. Wayne tried baking a cake, but ultimately they had to settle for opening a can of frosting. And unfortunately, that was about as good as things were ever going to be. A month earlier, Leon, Lance's brother, had made a serious mistake. While scouting with his brother, he encountered a group of former rioters and started talking about their fortified neighborhood. The men eventually let the brothers go, but they followed them home. The settlement was attacked, and in the chaos, Wayne took his children and fled.
Mama, this is David. The Batman came back. I saw them shoot Mr. Lance and he fell off the roof. Michael said he'd be okay, but he isn't moving.
David, come on. Dad said we had to grab our stuff.
No! I have to leave a note for Mama so she can find us. Stop it!
Boys, come on. We're leaving. Now.
Hold it, I have to get Jangles!
Michael, grab your brother. There's no time. They'll be back any second.
And this is where the family story seems to disappear. But Bonnie's story continues. While Wayne was desperately trying to keep his family alive, Bonnie was still trapped at the hospital. Eventually, she heard that radio signal, which sounded like her husband and children, and she decided to leave the hospital to find them. But before she did, she recorded one final message for Wayne, just in case.
Wayne, I'm leaving this message with Marcy in case you come looking for me, though I pray you don't. The military took over the hospital, and everything's gone to hell in the city. Things here, they're... It's bad, Wayne. People are dying every day, and most of the time all we can do is watch and try to make them comfortable. One of the other nurses told me she heard a radio signal that sounded like you and the boys. I don't know if it's true, if you're still out there, but we've got a way out, and I'm going to try to find you.
And that's the last time we hear from Bonnie. We don't know whether she made it out of the hospital, if the soldiers allowed her to leave. We don't know whether she found Wayne and the boys. We don't know where the family eventually ended up, and we don't know if any of them survived. And that's what makes this story so sad. Bonnie spent months trapped in a hospital, desperately hoping her husband and children were still alive. Meanwhile, Wayne was only a few miles away, doing exactly the same thing, broadcasting their family radio signal and telling his children that their mother was coming home. They were both alive, they were both looking for each other, and neither of them knew just how close the other one was. After all that heartbreak, I think we could probably use something a little less depressing. Thankfully, this next thing is considerably more questionable instead of sad. Fallon's department store was once the flagship store of the Fallon's company, but by 2287, it's become home to a rather large group of super mutants, though we aren't here for them. On the first floor, you'll find a row of bathroom stalls, and in one of them is a stepladder. At first, that doesn't seem all that unusual. Maybe somebody, a janitor or custodian, was repairing something, or perhaps the ladder was moved into the stall after the bombs fell. But then, you look up. There's a skeleton draped over the top of the stall, and lying nearby on the floor is a camera. Put the pieces together, and it becomes pretty clear what was happening. This guy had climbed onto the ladder so he could look and apparently take photographs over the top of the divider and into the next stall. Unfortunately for him, the world ended before he got the chance to explain himself, and 200 years later, his remains are still hanging there, forever caught in the act. We don't know who this guy was, who he was spying on, or if the person being spied on ever noticed they were being spied on. But honestly, we probably don't need to know, and unlike most of Fallout's mysteries, I think we're probably better off leaving this one unsolved. One thing we can solve, though, is an obscure puzzle found inside the West Roxbury station. This is one of those locations that you might stumble across while exploring, although if you side with either the Brotherhood of Steel or the Institute, you can also be sent here as part of a quest. The quest itself isn't that important for what we're interested in, because once you're inside, there's a rather clever little puzzle hidden underneath the station. Once you make your way down to the train platforms, you'll find several buttons scattered throughout the station. They're tucked behind security gates and inside corridors, and if you press them in the correct order, they control the trains, allowing you to work your way through the station and eventually reach the other side of the chain door back at the entrance. The solution isn't that complicated, but the game doesn't exactly hold your hand either. You need to work your way around the trains, pressing the buttons in the correct order, then backtrack through the station as each section becomes accessible. This has clearly been set up by someone, and I think we can find the people responsible on the eastern platform. Here, there's two skeletons sitting together. One of them is clutching a bundle of pre-war money, while a bottle of Day Tripper can be found nearby. Nothing suggests they are in fact the ones who did this, but I can just see the two survivors getting bored, screwing around with the trains and setting up a fun puzzle for someone else to solve, before then taking one too many pills and checking out, so to speak. But if you have another theory, maybe this is just how the station operated before the war to prevent domestic terrorists from tampering with the trains, or maybe it's just the developers having fun. Either way, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to show your support by liking the video and subscribing if you haven't already for more Fallout content. If there's anything you'd like to see in a later video, leave a comment and I'll see what I can do. With that said, thank you, as always, for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.